The United States has a long history of anti-Semitism, but before we can delve into this topic, what is anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism, also known as the world's longest hatred, is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as the hostility toward or discrimination against Jews as a religious, ethnic, or racial group. It's important to understand some Jewish history before we can begin. Judaism is an ethno-religion, meaning that Judaism is a religion followed by a particular ethnic group, the Jewish ethnic group. Unlike other religions like Christianity and Islam, which were belief systems that spread across borders and across nations, the Jewish people were a nation from the Middle East that were forced to cross borders. Jews remained an ethnic group throughout history because Judaism does not promote conversion, and laws were established in the countries which Jews took refuge that forbade Jews from marrying into the local populations. Jews have been discriminated against and murdered throughout history because of an awful hatred. This hatred did not disappear once Jews came to the United States. Jews were not welcomed into white society and were treated as other. Although Jews were granted citizenship in 1790, it would not be until 1877 before Jews were allowed to hold public office everywhere in the United States. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there were multiple instances of horrific anti-Semitism and Jews being lynched. The most infamous case being the lynching of Leo Frank in Marietta, Georgia in 1915. Frank was wrongly accused of the murder of 13-year-old Mary Fagan. During Frank's trial, crowds outside the courthouse were heard chanting, "Hang the Jew!" despite witnesses which placed Frank at home, having lunch at the time of the murder, and strong evidence suggesting that a different man murdered the girl. Frank was sentenced to death. After Georgia's governor commuted Frank's sentence to life imprisonment, a mob stormed the prison where Frank was being held, dragged him around town, and then hanged him from a tree. In response to the lynching, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, was founded to fight anti-Semitism in the United States, which it still does to this day. Leaders of the lynch mob, described as intelligent and of good character, later helped the revival of the KKK. Pictures of townsfolk photographed beneath Frank's swinging corpse are still valued by their descendants today. In the same time period, Jews found themselves barred from many different establishments, including social clubs. Signs outside these clubs often read, "Jews not allowed." In the early 1920s, barring Jews from social clubs became commonplace. Many Jews were expelled from clubs in which they were already members. Even into the 1980s, the Baltimore Country Club had a sign that read, "No dogs, no colored, no Jews." However, also in the 1980s, many clubs relented and finally allowed in Jews after courts made discrimination more difficult. Even today, though, discrimination exists. The top 5 country clubs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where Jewish charities built one of America's best-rated hospitals, still have no Jewish members. Only the sixth-rate club, the Dallas, admitted its first Jew in 1997. Another example of Jewish discrimination can be found in Florida. Despite Florida's large Jewish population, there are still multiple clubs that have partial or complete bans on Jewish members. At the same time, Jewish people were also being refused accommodation in hotels, resorts, and restaurants. In the 1930s, hotels in Miami Beach boasted that there was always a view and never a Jew. Refusing Jewish people accommodation became commonplace in 1877. Joseph Seligman, a banker whose contributions to the Civil War have been regarded as vital for the Northern victory, was refused accommodation at the Grand Union Hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York, because he was Jewish. In 1879, Austin Corbin, the president of the Manhattan Beach Corporation in Coney Island, New York, announced that they would no longer accept Jewish guests. His reasoning was that Jews are detestable and vulgar people. In the early 1900s, many hotels, restaurants, and resorts posted signs which read, "No dogs, Jews, or colored." Through the efforts of organizations such as the American Jewish Committee and the ADL, the practice of barring Jewish people and other minorities from accommodation was combated until it eventually declined in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Employment discrimination against Jewish people became commonplace in the 1920s. All over the United States, Newspaper One ads frequently advised "Jews need not apply" or "Gentiles only." By the end of the 1920s, Jewish people were excluded from 90% of New York general office jobs. A 1936 article in Fortune magazine revealed that many industries, such as, but not limited to, commercial banking and insurance, were almost exclusively non-Jewish. Many Jewish people became concentrated in professions such as medicine and law because they could operate independently without being subjected to discrimination by employers. Nevertheless, a survey done in 1950 revealed that Jewish law graduates earned less than their non-Jewish peers, and 84% were more likely to work for and with other Jews because of difficulty in finding employment with non-Jewish firms. Additional surveys done with Jews in other professions revealed similar findings, with many Jewish people forced to take jobs unrelated to their college training. Employment discrimination against Jewish people and other minorities decreased in 1964 with the passage of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination in employment. As the Jewish population in America grew, so did the demand for Jewish restrictions in universities. By the 1920s, many universities, particularly Ivy League universities, set limits on how many Jews could attend. A document in Yale University's archives labeled "The Jewish Problem" details how beginning in 1923, Yale kept Jewish enrollment under 10%. Also in 1923, Franklin Roosevelt, yes, that Franklin Roosevelt, as a member of the Harvard Board of Directors, decided that there were too many Jewish students at the college and helped institute a quota to limit the number of Jews admitted to Harvard. Another example is Columbia University's medical school, which reduced its Jewish student body from 47% in 1920 to only 6% in 1940. Another implement universities used to lessen Jewish admissions was giving preference to children of alumni in order to maintain a predominantly Protestant student body. Due to the actions of those who actively fought against discriminatory policies, Jewish quotas for student admissions were abolished by the 1960s. At the same time that Jewish people were struggling to move up the socioeconomic ladder because of many obstacles, even white-passing Jews were forbidden from moving into white-only neighborhoods due to racial covenants. Racial covenants were binding agreements often written into property deeds, which barred the selling of property to a particular group of people. White people in the United States used racial covenants to prevent minorities, such as blacks, Asians, and Jews, from moving into their neighborhoods. Many communities did not want Jews to move in, not only because they were anti-Semitic, but also because they were racist. People were scared that blacks would follow Jews into their neighborhoods because Jews were one of the first groups to integrate with the black community. Restricting Jews and other minorities from moving into white neighborhoods would remain legal until 1968 with the passage of the Fair Housing Act. Nevertheless, some homeowners and realtors still discriminated against Jews. In La Jolla, California, realtors developed different tactics to avoid selling homes to Jews well into the 1970s. Sadly, many influential people in the United States encouraged hatred against Jewish people. Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company, was also the author of the book The International Jew, The World's Foremost Problem. Ford's book spewed hateful anti-Semitic rhetoric which claimed that Jews were taking over the world. Even Adolf Hitler called Henry Ford an inspiration and quoted him in his book Mein Kampf. Father Coughlin was one of the most influential men in the United States throughout the 1930s. He had a radio show with an audience that reached tens of millions of Americans. Coughlin explicitly attacked the Jews in his broadcasts, and he defended the Nazis for persecuting the Jews. He was eventually taken off the air in 1940. Charles Lindbergh was an American aviator, military officer, and inventor. He received the Medal of Honor for his accomplishments in aviation. He was also a Nazi sympathizer. Lindbergh blamed the Jews for entering into World War II and for controlling the media and the government. Louis Farrakhan has led the Nation of Islam since 1977. He routinely uses his popularity to ignite hatred against the Jews. He wrongly claims that Jews controlled the slave trade and promoted Jim Crow laws, and that Jews control the media and the government. When confronted about his anti-Semitic beliefs, he said that he is not an anti-Semite, but rather an anti-termite. Anti-Semitism didn't disappear after the Holocaust. In the mid-20th century, anti-Semitism changed from institutionalized discrimination to violence on Jews from their fellow citizens. The FBI began to keep hate crime statistics in 1991. The statistics revealed that Jews are the number one group targeted by hate crimes every single year. The left routinely dismisses anti-Semitism by labeling Jews as white, while white supremacists routinely attack Jews because they do not consider Jews white. In addition, Jews in America are also attacked by those who hold them accountable for the actions of the government of Israel, a country in which American Jews do not live in and do not vote in, halfway across the world. There are many examples of anti-Semitic hate crimes. In 1958, Atlanta's oldest synagogue was bombed. In 1967, there was a series of attacks on Jews in Mississippi. In 1977, there was a synagogue shooting in Missouri. In 1984, Jewish talk radio host Alan Berg was murdered because he was Jewish. In 1999, there was a shooting at the Jewish Community Center in Los Angeles. The same year, 3 synagogues were firebombed in Sacramento. In 1994, Jewish students were murdered on the Brooklyn Bridge in New York. In 2002, there was an attack on a synagogue in Oregon. And in 2009, there was a shooting at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. While we only managed to skim the tip of the iceberg of anti-Semitism in the United States after the Civil War, it is important to remember the words of Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.